Hello everybody and welcome back to my tutorial Let's Play. This is Weather Mountains, episode 11, with the goal of acquiring a monarch, most likely a duke or a baron. We are currently a town in Weather Mountains and we are sitting at a population of 93. The very end of the last episode I actually did some trading with the mountain home. They had requested a lot of goblets, at which point I sold it to them. Now they were very happy with that goblet trade and have provided us with a very large amount of stuff. I was able to buy almost the entire caravan, so I'm expecting a lot of new migrants. Many people have asked me how migrants work, and the more you trade to the mountain home, the more you get in migrants. The more value they acquire, the happier they are with you and the more they send back. We have a few things we would like to complete today, or I would like to complete today. I would like to get some pigtail farms up and running. Up on the surface, we do have quite a bit of rope reed being planted, so we do have some automated rope reed jobs, but I would like to make sure that the process of getting cloth is a non-issue. Cloth is something that I think a lot of players overlook, and then very rapidly they end up in a bad situation. Up until now in this playthrough, every single time there is cloth available, I simply assign a process plants job or go into the work orders screen here and assign a process plants job. But we just want to make sure we have more plants. So if you remember previously, whenever there's 10 unrotten or accessible plants that are processable, they will process them. So what we're going to do immediately upon the beginning of this round is we're going to go down to our cavern layer, which is something that I've done my best to secure, at least decently well. Of course, it's impossible to completely secure a cavern layer, or at least in my headcanon it is, and you can see that we have some dead pigtails and some dead sweet pods growing down here naturally. When you have access to the cavern layers, you're actually going to get wild plants growing that the dwarves will need to survive. So I'm going to queue up a pigtail / dimple cups gardening spot down here. And this is going to be a pretty active site for us in this fortress, because we're definitely going to need to make sure that there is a good supply of pigtails for our dwarves, because that's going to probably be one of our main exports, is clothing. So what we're going to do is we are going to jump down here and we are going to make sure that they mine this out. And I'm going to go into the building screen. We're going to go over to farming and we're going to go to farm plot. And I'm just going to queue up to farm plots. Now, because we're not in the season of pigtails at this time, in fact, pigtail season is just ending and we're prepping for next year, I don't need to worry too much about getting these done right away. I just kind of want to get them queued up. Now, because these are in the caverns, it's almost 5 times as effective as growing on the surface. So we're not going to need to worry too much about the size of these particular sites, because they won't be outputting particularly slow. They'll actually be outputting very quickly. So we're going to get these 2 queued up, and then after this, we're going to begin working on space for our mayor, because I checked right at the very beginning of this, and our mayor isn't actually happy with their quarters right now. They still need some stuff. Let's take a peek at what. So they still need a dining room, and it needs to be a decent dining room. And they're also still waiting on 2 chests. So we're going to see if we can get those assigned. We also have this growing stockpile of chainmail over here, which is kind of amusing to me. So I think this will be a nice little space right here for our Baron's dining hall, or not Baron, our Mayor's dining hall. It's a little bit cramped, but I'm sure that they will make do. And the other thing that we're going to be working on next is getting just a couple of bigger seed stockpiles set up, because as you can see, we've kind of got this pile of seeds right here. And we're also going to, or rather work on getting more of those seeds into this stockpile, because we do have plenty of space in this seed stockpile. I just need to make it more, I just need more bags available to them, which we can use that rope reed cloth for. So since we've been making that rope reed, I'm actually just going to double take a peek, see how many we have lying around in the cloth stockpile. We got a lot of rope reed cloth. So what we're going to do is I think we're just going to queue up some clothing as well as bags. So we're going to make rope, or rather cloth bag. Cloth bag. So cloth is like your plant cloth and that sort of thing. Yarn would be from animals and silk would be from spiders. So we're going to be making cloth bags here. I'm going to queue up, not under automated, but just, I think, a flat 20 of those I think will be plenty. We are making charcoal, we are brewing drinks from plants when necessary, and we are also processing plants. We're also making bone crafts, and we are forging silver goblets for our dwarves. Now, Something else that I really like to do in my forts is have multiple meeting zones. Right now, we just have this tiny little tavern. I feel like we should also have a dining hall somewhere. So what I think we're going to do, especially now that our population is scaling up and rising, is we're going to build ourselves a little dining hall. Perhaps maybe a layer down here for anybody who happens to be crafting. Just a local space for our dwarves to be able to get together. Or maybe we'll go even further down and place it close to these temples. It looks like there's some space we need to fill in as we've been mining around down here anyway, so I'm thinking this is probably a pretty good spot. Keep in mind, we do have this water flowing, so if we do try and dig through here, it is going to cause a bit of a mess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to queue up a space for us to make into a dining hall, and once it's all dug out, I'll continue speaking. So I mentioned earlier about seeds. We had some seeds stacking up in our tavern on the seats. Something else that we can do if we realize that there's just an abundance of seeds around is we can go over to the labor menu. In the labor menu, there's a submenu called the kitchen menu. And as you can see, there's this whole selection of different plants and things. And you might notice and remember that we turned off the cooking of plump helmets. Well, we can actually go over to seeds here and say, you know, I would really like to cook some of these fisherberry seeds. I would also like to cook some of these quinoa seeds. I'd like to cook some of these long-laying grass seeds. These are seeds that we are just kind of accumulating that I'm not going to be using for anything. We can cook these ratweed seeds and these not the ropeweed seeds because those are getting planted, but the split or the spelt seeds, which people get very annoyed at me for saying split. I don't know why I say it. It's just that word looks wrong to me. Anyway, we can also keep those sweet pod seeds around. So now when we queue up a set of meals, like I'm going to do in the background right now, they're actually going to use those seeds. So we're going to make meal, and we're just going to make fine meals. The difference is 1 ingredient for easy meals, 2 ingredients for fine meals, 3 for lavish. We're just going to do the 2 ingredient fine meals. And I'm going to queue up 80 of these. Well, actually, let's queue up 120 of these because I would like to have a couple of meals for every dwarf. And then in the background here, I'm going to set a when number of unrotten and prepared meals is less than, let's say, 45. We will begin making more. Another thing that you might notice in the background, and I realize I haven't let them dig this out yet, is by default, dwarves will automatically gather silk. Now, silk is great, and we do want some silk around, but I don't want them to gather too much silk because the caverns are quite dangerous. So I'm actually going to disable automatically collect webs. Occasionally, I will turn that back on if we need some more silk, but there's no real reason to let it run at all times because the dwarves are eventually going to start putting themselves in danger. We also have a lot of livestock running around, so I think I'm going to pasture some of these new livestock in the caverns, which, you know, is a decent way of allowing them to eat. Some people get annoyed with the cave moss, but it's actually a very useful thing to have. We're going to specifically put this bunny here, we're going to put this reindeer here, as well as this llama, because those 3 all need to graze. As we scroll up and down, you can see that we do have some turkeys and things that are not currently set to graze. Same with that rooster and these ducks. That is okay. We can let some animals run around the fort. However, ones that will starve to death, like this bunny, do need to be placed in that grazing zone. Up here on the upper level, you can see that our mayor's dining room has now been dug out, so we are going to smooth that. I'm just going to quickly queue up a smoothing job for everything in the dining room. And it looks like some migrants have arrived, meaning that migrant wave I was expecting seems to have arrived just on time. I'm now going to place a couple of tables into the mayor's dining room, and I do hope that they appreciate it. We're going to try and keep things roughly the same color with these slate tables, and we're going to place a throne at the end of it. I kind of love giving them these long tables. I know it doesn't actually work that way. It's just kind of how I like making things. And then I'm going to place 2 chests just so that they are satisfied, and then we're going to throw a door onto this. And just because this is how my headcanon works, I'm going to carve some holes in here just so that the mayor can peek through and look into the main tavern. Make sure everything's, going according to the way the mayor would want them to, And then we're going to assign this area as a little dining hall in the zones screen. We're going to accept that, and we are going to add our mayor to this zone. Now, if we check in the mayor happiness ratings, they're not totally happy with any of their rooms, so we do have some improving we need to do. They're also demanding that we make some short swords, which is very much understandable. I completely understand why they would want us to make short swords. I mean, we're going to be getting attacked soon, probably, anyways. So the next thing I'm going to queue up is we are going to be queuing up short swords, but we're only going to queue up 3. And now that we're getting those 3 swords made, hopefully that will appease our mayor. I just want to make sure that the mayor gets their jobs done on time, and because there isn't much else going on here aside from these silver goblets, I am going to cram these up a little bit higher. Although it does not look like those silver goblets are getting done because it appears that we've run out of silver, so I'm just going to quickly queue up a job to smelt more of that galena ore that we've mined out. Or rather, tetrahedrite ore that we've mined out, because we do need some more silver to get those goblets done. We also have a petition lined up here. Ooh, this is exciting. The Renowned Doctrines has many worshippers in Weather Mountains, and now requires a temple and a priest. A location must be built and furnished with a new position appointed by you. So we need to make a fancy temple. Now, before we do that, we're just going to quickly finish up this dining room because I would really like to get this done. Now, the way we're going to do this is we're just going to smooth it out, and then we're going to go down to this lower area right here, and we're going to dig out kind of an open space. I would like to build a temple. I would not like to carve out a temple. Of course, temples, in my opinion, require a little bit more finesse and care than your average zone for some dwarves. Now, just a pro tip here, I don't generally immediately approve these. What I do is I let them sit there until I'm finished the space where I want to put it, then I approve it. Also, something else that I mentioned in this last episode is we've had some rumors spread. So we're actually going to jump up to this screen and take a look at them. We're going to center on our fortress and click on News and Rumors. See all of these icons moving around this map? This is indication of the world simulation at play. So in the early summer of 103, the army of Nusik tech paddles marched on a spiral sparkle. Somebody over here is attacking. We can actually see where they're coming from if we follow the little dotted line. So from right here, an army has moved down there, which is interesting because it appears to be coming from this little spot up here. Yeah, right there. See, it's moving along and down and attacking the elves. We can also see over here, these humans are also attacking the elves. And we can also see from right here that this forest retreat is attacking the humans. So it's very much a back and forth battle. It's interesting that a goblin was the one that gave us that rumor, though. So while all of this is going on in the background, I'm going to do a little bit of filling in, and we're just going to try and, make these temples here a little bit more acceptable. Currently, they're a little bit, let's just say, dug out. I'm going to queue up some lower priority digging jobs to kind of dig behind these so that we can get all of this ore out of here without actually having to cancel our current jobs. And I'm just going to dig these little hallways here just so that we can fill in these back areas without having to worry about, making these temples all look terrible. Now that this area up here has been fully smoothed out, we're going to put some doors onto the front of it. I like these bauxite doors. I think they look quite nice. And then we're going to place some tables and chairs in here. So these little tables and chairs, I'm just going to set it to use closest material. Just keep in mind, you can't actually put more than one chair per table. We've run out of tables now, so what we can do is I can go down to the chairs sign and place them here. If I were to place some on this side as well, it's actually going to make the dwarves upset because they're going to try and compete for that table space. So if you want to do a second row of tables, simply put them one tile down. We're then going to add a little food stockpile into this zone. It doesn't need to be a particularly big one. And the only things that are going to be permitted in this food stockpile are prepared meals, which we can click on by default to get done real quick, as well as drinks from plants, and also drink from animals if we end up having meat at some point. This little area is then going to be designated as a public dining hall, and dwarves do get specific happy thoughts for being in dining halls. They act as non-public taverns by default, and dwarves really like dining in them. So it's just kind of good to have them, even though I kind of need to get into the habit of making them more often because while they do act just as normal taverns do, I tend to just build taverns and then forget about making dining halls. So this is something I need to get better at, and you can too. And as you can see, our mayor is now satisfied because we completed the jobs required for those 3 iron swords, rather. And as you can see, if I hit the N key now, our mayor is now satisfied because we have completed those 3 swords. However, they are annoyed at the fact that we have considered exporting helms in the past, so they would not like us to export helms. Honestly, Mayor Bubness, I agree with you. We should make more swords and we should not sell our armor. These all seem like wise decisions. Checking our squad, we do have a full squad of dwarves now, and our population has gone up. I think in the background here, I'm going to queue up another squad of melee dwarves, and we are going to get them assigned. I'm going to take one of the dwarves from the previous squad, because, fun fact, if the dwarf has already been trained in that skill, they will train the new squad faster. So I'm going to take one of the dwarves from that old squad, replace that dwarf with a new dwarf, somebody who's competent in something like this competent axe dwarf here, and then go into this squad and assign a new squad full of green dwarves, because they will train significantly faster. So we're going to scroll down the list and spot dwarves that have a few notable skills in combat and get this one filled out. Now we've got this squad filled out, I'm going to go back here and we're going to set them to train. And we're also going to go to their schedule and we're going to set them to constant training. Now we're going to set them to train in the same location that the other squad is training. And we appear to be in a bad situation now. It's a good thing that we have an army. Cavern dwellers! Send them back into the darkness. It looks like we are being attacked by some amphibian men. So we're going to send out our main squad of dwarves to deal with them as quickly as possible. It appears that one of our dwarves has walked directly into them nonetheless. And also, who is this? Vutok the miner is, rest in peace Vutok the miner, who died very quickly and suddenly, and it's very unfortunate. Now, as for the military themselves, let's make sure that they can actually reach these cavern dwellers. They not have the way to there. Oh, I see. They are already heading out, but for some reason it says that they're going to a kicking demonstration. Well, this is a demonstration in kicking out invaders, that's for sure. The dwarves run in and pile drive those amphibian people into the ground, crushing every single one of them. How dare they come after us? How dare they show us that they deserve to keep their own land? Well, this is our land now, and look at this. They've brought us gifts. Steel spears, iron spears, and steel shields, as well as a nose. Well, they knows nothing about our power, and we are going to take their things from them. So it looks like we're going to be getting some steel shields for free. Unfortunately, we also need to find a place to put that body. So now that we've built up a second squad, I think what we're actually going to do is change our plans ever so slightly. We're going to move this second squad down to the cavern layers and actually build a barracks down here, which I think I recall mentioning in the previous episode, that was something we should do. I mean, it's probably not a bad idea anyways, considering we're going to be digging down through this interesting collection of gems. So what I think we're going to do is we're just going to make a real quick barracks zone down here. And we're just going to assign our dwarves to train here. This is going to be kind of a temporary training spot until we can get them in a better place. The main squad is still going to be training up above, but the lower squad is going to be training at the lower location. So, while we're doing all of that, we still need to build this temple. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually grab walls, and I'm going to use this little tactic that I've been using for building recently, which I think is a little bit creative, and you can let me know what you think of it in the comments section. So we're just going to select material after placement, and then from here, we can select whatever we want. I think I'm just going to tell them to make this out of probably these jet blocks that I have here. But as you can see, I don't quite have enough. So I'm just going to use the jet boulders that are left over. Now that we have this little space here, I can go in and do what I want with it. We can kind of build backwards, if you will. So I'm going to cut out the middle, and I'm gonna kind of cut out this upper thing, and we're using the deconstruct tool. Once all of this is placed, I can then go on the inside and we can queue up the floors. The floors here I'm just going to make out of orthoclase, which by the way is fool's gold, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to go through the surface and deal with all of that, and then place slate for the doorway. We're going to let the dwarves construct this, and once it's constructed, I'll continue speaking. So for the temple itself, it's for the Renowned Doctrines. I'm going to accept it now because we're going to be making the zone for it. The Renowned Doctrines is a local religion, and it's very easy to spot them once you've accepted them as well, and I'll show you why in a second. Once I make this zone, I can now go into meetings, and we can go to temples, similar to the other temples, except it's going to be one of the yellow ones. And as you can see, they have 14 worshippers. This one only has 2, and the few down here only have 1 or 2. Now, the reason it's really easy to spot the one that you've accepted is because they can only petition for a religion if there's more than 10 members. Same goes for guild halls. If you're scrolling through the list and you can't remember which one you accepted, just look for one that has more than 10 members. This particular religion worships the god of mountains, volcanoes, fire, the sun, the sky, wind, and thunder. Pretty badass, if you ask me. We're going to accept that, and then we're going to be able to check the value of it. Now, currently the value is less than 1,000, which means we need to increase the value a little bit. Now, there's a few different ways we can do that. One of them is by simply putting a door on the front, and that's going to help right away off the bat. We're going to make it out of bauxite because I like the red. Then as they come in and they assign more spaces, we may actually need to make this bigger in the future if they ask for a temple complex. But for right now, we can simply go with all of these tasks here. Just make sure they're all unsuspended, and we can check the value again right now. Still not quite high enough. Now, a way that we can inflate the value of these constructed walls is by simply putting engravings on the floor. Another way to do this is by putting statues in here. Another way to do this is by adding various other additions to it. But we're just going to try the good old-fashioned engrave everything job and see what that does to the value of this particular room. So in a previous episode, I said I was going to make this into a barracks, which I think we're still going to do, just not going to end up happening in this particular episode. But what we are going to do is we're going to need to place our coffins somewhere. And one of my favorite things to do with coffins, actually, is using old ore veins, just because I think it's very dwarfy. So we do have this lovely area back here behind all of these temples, and I think I'm just going to dig a couple of little nooks into here, and these are going to be places where we are going to place coffins. Of course, though, these gems, they need to get mined, so I'm not going to worry so much about them, but that dwarf needs a place to rest. Now, also, we can see that this area here has been fully dug out, and there's a llama standing there, and it is a high enough value, so we have managed to reach the 2,750. Now, that is what they requested, is simply a temple. If they request a temple complex, we'll need to increase the value up to 10,000, and for this particular temple, we'd probably move it to a new location because it's too small. But now, in order to complete this job, we need to recognize priesthood. Now, the Sacred Twinkle, which is very funny of a name, is the priest name that we need to assign. So now we need to select a dwarf from our fortress. Of course, a judge of intent, a competent persuader. I generally like to make our religious leaders competent liars, just because I think it's kind of funny. But let's just take a peek. This adequate conversationalist and soap maker, I think that Moses up here at the top, the competent judge of intent, is probably a good religious leader. So Moses, the Sacred Twinkle, is now running this little here religion. And we've got this baby alpaca here who apparently is chilling there. So now if we hover over this, we can see that the priesthood of the renowned doctrines is ready to be recognized. This will satisfy the agreement, meaning we've completed that and satisfied the agreement. Dwarves are training outside in the cavern layers, and as you can see, some of them are lacking weapons. Well, we need them to equip some weapons, so perhaps we should make a bigger weapons stockpile. I'm pretty sure I'd made one of those already, but I'm not seeing one at a glance. So we should probably get that assigned as well. I think down here, because I know over on the side here, we did make a clothing stockpile, which is very close to the edge right there. I don't think this has weapons assigned. Oh, no, it does, in fact, have weapons assigned. Interesting. I guess they're just opting to not use spears at this particular site. So let's just jump into here and take a real quick peek at their inventory, shall we? So a lot of them are just simply wielding nothing. So if I hit update equipment, they may run out and check for new things. I could also assign a new uniform. I think what we're purely going to do here is just queue up 10 more swords and 10 more shields, and that'll pretty much satisfy what we need. And they also should grab those steel shields as they become available, because steel is higher value than iron, and they do tend to prioritize the higher value items. We also have a pissed off dwarf up here on the top, which we need to find out what's up with them. I've also noticed a lot of people complaining about boulders everywhere. A really good way to get rid of boulders is just simply have blocks making jobs going on at all times. Cutting a boulder into 4 blocks is a very effective way of getting rid of them, because you can then stack them in bins. So if you make a block stockpile and you have bins available in them, they will put those blocks into bins instead of just having boulders everywhere, which can't go into bins. So if you're trying to get rid of boulders, either make furniture or bins. In this case, we're actually going to queue up some tables because I need some more tables and thrones. And we're also going to be queuing up blocks. So rock table will make 25. Rock throne will also make 25. And then rock blocks will queue up a good number of them. I'm thinking 250. That'll keep our stoneworkers busy for a bit. And down here we can see that they haven't really started working on any of this, and because I don't think we have any coffins built in this fortress, we don't, so we're actually going to skip out of the justice screen. We're actually going to jump over to the workers screen again, and we're going to queue up rock coffins, which I often end up accidentally queuing up coffers instead. And we're going to push that up in the priority board just so those get done a little bit quicker. Now what we're going to be doing is we are going to actually assign some justice, because we do have that justice system all ready to go, but we haven't really messed with it so much. We do have our captain of the guard, and he does have pretty much everything they need. So I'm going to walk you guys through the justice system a little bit. When a crime is committed, a dwarf will go and report it to the captain of the guard. This might start happening because we do have some pretty upset dwarves. Then it is listed in the open cases section here. If dwarves witness the crime being committed, then we have the option to convict them right away. You can also just guess and convict anybody. Under closed cases, it'll say what happened. It was a violation of production order. This has already been closed. And then under cold cases, these are cases that sat open long enough that the dwarves gave up. And then over here, we have the fortress guard, which currently is just the one dwarf. And then convicts, no sentence pending. And then lastly, intelligence. If we actually interrogate dwarves, it will pop up under the intelligence screen. However, in order to interrogate, we do need an open case. So because there's no crimes here, it's a little bit difficult for me to actually properly tutorialize that menu. I hope that you understand. We also have a ghostly spear dwarf hanging around here, so there are some things that we need to deal with bodies-wise. So I'm just going to simply wait until some of those coffins are ready to go, and then we will continue the video. Another thing that I like to do in areas where I'm actively working is I'll just go and place stoneworker shops in the middle of things, in places where they are convenient. So there's a bunch of boulders lying around here, and we're going to be working here more. Might as well place a stoneworker shop right there to help get them at the source. Lastly, I mentioned that we were going to be mining down in this area a little bit, so might as well mine down a little further, because we do have some interesting rock formations that we've found here, so might as well keep digging. We're going to go down to this layer, and as you can see, there are some gems down here, so I'm just going to automate these. We're also going to channel down a little further into this area. So let's queue up a little bit of digging once we get down this far. So we're going to queue up all of that, and also channel down right here. So they're going to dig down into this area and then dig this area out. I'm just going to make sure that we remove this because I don't want them to then go and, make this area impossible for them to get out of. I'm also going to give them a little way back up just in case they get stuck. And now we have all these dead amphibian people down here. Well, we're going to need a way to get rid of them. I can't just leave them there, and frankly, that would just be an utter waste. So what we're going to do, I think, is we're going to make ourselves a little garbage disposal unit, which I don't think I've built yet in this fortress. Now, my favorite way of disposing of garbage is just simply using a drawbridge, because you can crush things, and it makes things rather efficient. I usually tend to put these close to the kitchens in case there are bits of garbage that need to be disposed of. And then I'll usually put a refuse stockpile right next to it. So we're going to go back here, and we're going to make a refuse and corpses stockpile, and we're also going to make a little garbage disposal space. Now, I'm going to make the garbage disposal space by placing a lever right here. And then we're going to put a door and a drawbridge in this area. Now, the drawbridge itself is going to kind of act as a method of demolishing things. It's going to crush stuff. When it comes down, it's going to remove things from existence. So the way we're going to do this is by building a drawbridge. So now we're going to place the drawbridge and we're going to lift it up to the right. And I'm just going to make it out of whatever's close by because it doesn't matter too much. Then we're going to grab a door and we're going to place it on the front door. We are up to 103 citizens, so it's also worth checking on our beds. And while that's being constructed, we're going to check on who's really upset. By check on beds, I mean click on this little plus sign next to the dwarf and scroll all the way down to the bottom, see if anybody needs a room. Everybody seems to have quarters, so that means we are doing quite well in that regard. We're also going to see who's really upset and why they're so upset. It seems to be one of our swords dwarves. Why are you pissed off here, dwarfy? You're satisfied, you're irritated upon seeing an amphibian woman die. Well, that's unfortunate. Is there a particular reason? You dream of creating a great work of art. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to leave you in your job because you're pretty good at it, frankly. Now we're going to go down to here and we're going to link this lever up to this drawbridge real quick, and then we're going to give the lever a pull once it's linked. Then I'm going to make a garbage dump site underneath where the drawbridge is going to come down. So this garbage dump site is going to act as a trash disposal. And then what we can easily do is we can go over here into the stock screen and we can look up corpses. Now, corpses are just going to be chucked directly into here. As you can see, they're mostly amphibian people, except for our dwarf right here, which needs to not be corpseified, as well as Errol and Manam. I'm pretty sure these are all dwarves. I'm not entirely certain, but I'm mostly certain these are dwarves. So my dwarf skeletons I don't want to throw in there, but the rest can all go in there. As for the coffins, we need to now go back down and see that these doors have been placed, and we're going to grab these burial sites, which we do have 3 of now. So I'm just going to plop all of the coffins that we have, and we are going to make these not into a garbage dump. Well, I guess it is a sort of a garbage dump. We're going to be making them into tombs. Now, as always with these episodes, I'm getting distracted, and I had things that I planned that I haven't even mentioned yet because Dwarf Fortress just tends to throw a wrench into things. I think it's part of the appeal of the game, frankly. It's just going to make sure that you're always doing something that you're not expecting at the time, which just keeps things interesting and fresh. In the next episode, I will try and get this fortress back on course. We will continue expanding our military, and we're actually going to start attacking things. In fact, I think that is definitely something we're going to do in the next episode, is start attacking things. Thank you very much for watching this series, and to those of you who've stuck around this long, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to working our way towards a barony, which shouldn't take too much longer. I think we can get it done in another year or so. Usually I can get it done by year 5, but we'll see in this case. Thank you very much for watching this series, and I hope to see you in the net. Oh, hold up. I've got an artifact. Well, we can't simply let that go by. It's been claimed by a weaver. Where have you run off to, little dwarf? I was about to end the episode, but I think we should continue this until this artifact is completed, because this is a grand moment indeed for a dwarf. They are running up, and they are grabbing a rough gem. They're going to run this down back to their location. They're going to place it in the clothes shop. What else are they going to grab? More gems. Okay. We were going to do clothing, more clothing in this episode, but that didn't happen. I mean, these dwarves are already wearing pretty nice clothes, but I wanted to be a fashionable fortress. Get everybody some nice hoods or something. In fact, maybe we could just queue those up in the... Cavern dwellers? Again? Well, seems like the dwarves are already dealing with those. Well, fortunately, they're not a huge threat to us. It seems like one of our dwarves has actually tripped up and died. We've lost one. Let's station them down here and see if we can deal with the rest of these cavern dwellers. The spear dwarves run in and collide with those terrible, terrible, terrible creatures. Oh no, there's even more. We may need to seal off the caverns in the next episode. How are we doing? We've lost 2 dwarves. Second squad is still full. The dwarves are all stationed. How distressing. I think it's time for us to take this hatch back and make sure that we don't lose any more of our dwarves. We're going to run all the way down and reclaim that space. Okay, so now it's been reclaimed by our dwarves. We're going to cancel the orders and let the dwarves back up and inside. And we are going to lock this trap door because I don't want any more coming in. That is a lot. Oh boy, that is a horrific thing indeed. We're going to need to make sure that we remove all of these forbidden things so that we can get these bodies dealt with. Horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. It's a good thing that we placed this squad down here, hey? All right, let's check in on that artifact again. What is the dwarf looking for at this point? All right, they're sitting here and they must have rough gems. All right, well, you've already got your rough gems. Plenty of gems. Oh, you want bones. Probably fresh bones, I would guess. Well, we're going to have to deal with more of those corpses, but I think what we're going to do is we're just going to jump up here to the pets and livestock screen, and we are going to slaughter just a couple of these yaks, because I do have a ton of them. And get those being slaughtered, and that's probably what this dwarf needs. If that is in fact what this dwarf needs, then I'll continue speaking once one of those critters has been slaughtered. And here we go. It's clearly what they needed was bones. It's almost always bones because they want fresh bones. And of course, mangled corpses and old dead corpses can't be butchered, so it's got to be fresh. They grab even more gems. And then they grab something. I didn't even see what that was. Some magnetite. Ooh, ore of iron. It's going to be an interesting little artifact if I do say so myself. Definitely going to be a gift that we're going to have to give to our first Baron if I'm not mistaken. Take a look at this. Walking back to the clothes shop. And they're working furiously, meaning they have everything that they need. Let's check in on our coffins. None of them have actually been assigned to anything. Do I not have any dead? Do I have another coffin area that I've forgotten about? I don't think so. It's possible, but not that I'm aware of. Down at the bottom here. Right. Well, look at that. I do remember making this now. How embarrassing. Well, fortunately, we now have extra coffin space. I do feel like I've been neglecting this series a little bit, I will be honest. I've been doing my best to keep it up, but it's just a lot of work to put these episodes out. Fortunately, now we just have extra space for bodies, and it's good to see that our deceased dwarves are getting dealt with. Mostly. We do have a single ghost here, who clearly we weren't able to get to the body of. So what I think we're going to do is we're just going to quickly memorialize them. We're going to make ourselves a slab and get this dwarf memorialized straight up and right away. The main reason I was thrown off and thought that I already had, or thought that I hadn't made one of those is because we had that ghost just sitting there. And because we just had that ghost sitting there, that made me immediately go, oh, well, I must need to make a coffin, but clearly that's not the case. An artifact rope reed rope named Amos Bimakin. The weaver has created Bomrik Athis, a rope reed robe, and claims it and offers it to the Rampart of Raining. We'll have to save that for our first royal, that's for sure. If we examine it, it says, this is a rope reed robe. All craftsmanship is of the highest quality. It is encrusted with pear-cut amethysts and point-cut morions, and encircled with bands of yak bone. It is made from rope reed cloth, and this object menaces with spikes of magnetite. On the item is an image of Datan rocks clasps, the dwarf and dwarves in rope reed. Datan is surrounded by the dwarves. The artwork relates to the ascension of the dwarf Datan to the position of king of the Palace of Years in year 1. On the item is an image of Tukia in Morion. On the item is an image of dwarves in Dolomite. The dwarves are traveling. The artwork relates to the foundation of wheeled ship by the brave Syrup of the Palace of Years in the early spring of year 100. What a good little robe. That's definitely going to need to go to our first monarch. Well, today has been a lot. I'm not going to lie. It's been a lot. I kind of started panicking when I noticed the dead dwarves and whatnot. We just need to get that one dwarf memorialized, and then we can move forward with this fort. Let's get this ghost dealt with. And then, as you can see, they check mark it once it's ready to go, and then they come and get it done. Down at the bottom here, we can see that we now have a shale slab. Let's go to the correct site down here, and we are going to construct this slab. So we're going to select it from the list because there's a whole bunch here. There it is, Erel, and that should deal with the ghost, stat. So let's just wait for it to get built, and then we'll see a little notification up here, a little alert, once it's been dealt with. And as you can see, the dwarves are hauling these boulders out pretty consistently to get rid of them and turn them into better, more useful things. And here comes our child with the slab. 5 years old and already working so hard. So, looks like what was originally planned to be 2 episodes has become 1. Thank you very much for watching this episode of my beginner Let's Play, where I try and explain things as best as I can, as much as I can. And if you would like to see more videos like this, well, this playlist is now 11 videos long, and I've retraced my steps more times than I should. I do need to get better about taking notes in future Let's Plays, that's for sure. I hope that you've been enjoying this series. Thank you very much for tolerating my doubling up and missing things, and I hope to see you in the next one.